الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أحمده وأستغفره وأتوب إليه ثم أصلي وأسلم على خير خلقه وخاتم رسله النبي المؤيد والرسول الأمجد أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في أرضه اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم وفقنا بما تحب وترضى ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. I am very happy to be amongst my very dear brothers, especially the young ones sitting right here close to the minbar, and all the respected brothers from the Brisbane community. I've been here last year, 6 months ago to be accurate, but I never had the opportunity to lecture here, so alhamdulillah, I'm blessed and privileged to be amongst you, to be speaking about, in particular tonight, commemorating the characters and the life of Imam Al-Baqir and Imam Al-Jawad alayhim as-salam. I want to focus on the life of these two individuals. There isn't a central theme tonight as such for me to speak about, but more so to just share little segments about their lives and see how that relates to us today in our modern day lives. Is there an echo on this? Can you please turn that off? Thank you. I will begin with Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam. All of you are very familiar with the story of Karbala. You come here every Muharram and you hear the tragedy of Imam Al-Hussein. One of the important facts about this event and about Imam Al-Baqir is that he was present during the tragedy of Karbala. He was of small age, maybe 4 or 5, history says about 4 years old. And he witnessed this event. So we had 3 Imams present in the event of Karbala: Imam Al-Hussein, Imam Al-Sajjad, and Imam Al-Baqir alayhim as-salam ajma'in. He saw everything that happened, all the killing, all the murdering. He saw that his auntie Zainab, peace be upon her, was taken. He saw the children and his cousins, friends, young and old, be dragged through the cities to the courts of Ibn Ziyad, to the courts of Yazid. They were ridiculed, they were thrown things at, they were called names as they were paraded through these different cities. As a child, that's a lot to go through. Even as an adult, you hear the stories of Karbala. Sometimes we recite the majalis and we're too scared to recite the details because the details are horrific. And to imagine that that has happened to someone like the Imam and to the family of the Imam, it makes it very difficult to digest. To be there, to even see the events, and you're disconnected, not as a family member, no nothing, just to witness what is going on was a lot to consume. Let alone being a family member, let alone this being your grandfather, this being your uncle, someone who raised you, someone who you speak with, and now you're just seeing dead bodies, mutilated, blood everywhere, bodies without heads, and you're going from station to station and there are heads on spears. These are not sights that a child is supposed to see. Is not a scenery that is suitable for the mind of a child. Imam Al-Baqir witnessed all of this. If we were to use modern day terminology and modern day psychology, it would be very easy to say that Imam Al-Baqir experienced an immensely traumatic event. And the consequences of this trauma would have had to have an impact on his life thereafter. If Imam Al-Baqir had, imagine he lived in our time, and he went through Karbala as well, and he went to a psychologist, he would say, tell me about your life. And then Imam Al-Baqir would tell him, look, when I was 4, all of these things happened. The psychologist will say, well, that needs a lot of therapy sessions. A lot has happened in your life. You've seen a lot. you must be a very traumatized individual. What is bewildering in many of the tragedies of the Ahlul Bayt is that their trauma never stopped them. Their trauma did not stop them, nor did it become their identity. Yes, something happened to them, something of this magnificent scale, this horrendous measure happened to them. Nonetheless, it never became something that was the central item, the central point of their identity. We see this in our society today. Of course, just to be clear here, mental health and mental health problems is a real issue. And we do need to see professionals and counselors and therapists when we do have issues of this kind, and maybe a clinical psychologist when it's needed. It's not to discount that there's a need when there is a problem. But it is one thing to have a problem and solve it and be over with it, going through the process. It's another to center one's identity around victimhood. It is another to center one's identity around trauma. Every time you speak with this person, all he has to say is like, oh yeah, I went through this, my parents were bad to me, my uncle did this to me in school, I was bullied, so on and so forth, for all his life, as if he could never move on past this issue, as if he has nothing else to offer. And this is the problem with being stuck in trauma, with being stuck in victimhood. Of course, there are individuals who actually have no choice. They have been through such immense trauma that they may need years and decades, God knows, of therapy, of sitting down with psychologists and going through their problems. The problem they experience mentally may be so deep in their psyche that it's not something that you fix over years. Maybe it requires a lifetime of maintenance, mental health maintenance, no problem. These cases exist. But I'm talking about a general trend of Instagram psychology where everybody self-diagnoses with a trauma, with a problem, and that trauma seems to never go away, and that seems to be the center of their identity. Without seeking much professional help sometimes and just diagnosing and also curing themselves via reading books or via, once again, educating themselves through reels and TikToks and shorts, that does not leave them. This is a plague, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, that we experience in today's world of people being educated about these concepts and now using these concepts as an excuse not to move forward, as an excuse not to do better, as an excuse not to be better versions of themselves, which is quite ironic because the very mission of these sciences, the very mission of these fields, the very missions of these fields of knowledge is to better the person. But instead of the person becoming better, they get stuck. Imam Al-Baqir, despite being a child, despite being of that young age and going through that immense trauma, not only was he able to move past the tragedy in a positive sense, not that he forgot about the tragedy, never. Imam Al-Sajjad, for example, never forgot the tragedy. He used the tragedy in a way to assist the message, in a way to extend the message of Islam. It was never for personal use. Someone might say, well, what about Imam Al-Sajjad? As we know, every time he saw a sheep being slaughtered, he cried for his father. Every time he saw someone drinking water, he started crying for Imam Al-Hussein. So you would be fair to say that Imam Al-Sajjad never moved past his trauma. Is that what you're telling me? There's a big difference between using your trauma, using your problems in your life as experiences to boost your life, as experiences to boost for a message for a higher cause. That's one thing. It's another to drag yourself down, to keep digging the hole deeper and deeper and never be able to come out of it. The Ma'soomeen, the Imams, always used the problems they faced as opportunities. Problems were never problems in themselves. They were always used as an opportunity for growth. That's the first point, which I think becomes extremely relevant from the life of Imam Al-Baqir. The other is a story that is narrated in the Manaqib of Ibn Shahrashub. It's a story, a famous story, and I think it's also mentioned, no, it's in the Al-Manaqib. I believe it's a Christian man. He comes to Imam Al-Baqir, and as you know, Imam Al-Baqir in Medina, despite Medina always being a city that unfortunately persecuted and oppressed the Ahlul Bayt. Even Imam Al-Sadiq, as you know, he's known to have 4,000 narrators of hadith from him. Of course, sometimes it's understood that there was a classroom and Imam Al-Sadiq sat on the pulpit of the Mosque of Medina and there were 4,000 students there. No. The total number of people that narrated from Imam Al-Sadiq has been said to be 4,000. Whether this is accurate or not, it does not matter. My point is, even as someone as famous as Imam Al-Sadiq, by different schools of thoughts, he was still oppressed in Medina. And there are many accounts of this. And I don't just mean politically, I also mean from different scholars that were in Medina. Now, Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam, while the predecessor to Imam Al-Sadiq, the father of Imam Al-Sadiq, he was sitting down perhaps in his mosque in the city of Medina, and an individual who was not a Muslim, and it was Christian, I believe, approached him. And as you know, the name of and the laqab and the description and the attribute we use from this beautiful Imam is Al-Baqir. Al-Baqir means the one who splits. Splits what? Splits knowledge. Someone came to him, and instead of using his title, this beautiful title that was very resembling of him, instead called him a word that was insulting. He didn't say Anta al-Baqir, he said Anta al-Baqar. That you are, wal-'ayadhu billah, God forbid that we ever think of words like this, especially to use for the Imam, that you are a cow. To insult the Imam. He was doing a play on words to insult the Imam. The Imam, without reacting, without losing his temper, he said, La, ana al-Baqir. I am actually al-Baqir. I am the splitter of knowledge. This is the way Rasulullah referred to me. He realized, this man, this foreign man, that his insult game did not affect the Imam. So he went a step further. What's something you usually, hopefully not you, but people who are on the streets and they want to get on your nerves and they have very low adab and low etiquette, what do? They target something that is very special to you, an individual that is very special to you. They say your mother is this, your mother is that. So this individual, his petty tactic, first tactic, which was a play on words, which is what kids do, didn't work on the Imam. He moved to tactic number 2. Let me attack someone sensitive. He told the Imam, your mother is a cook. Your mother cooks, is a chef. So what? Your mother's a chef. He was trying to humiliate the Imam. So the Imam's like, okay, so what? If my mother as a profession used to cook, what's the problem with that? That was her profession. He remained calm and did not let this so-called insult affect him. Then he proceeded further and started calling the mother of the Imam other names, accusations. He said, your mother was bad-mouthed. She used to mistreat people. The Imam looked at him. If my mother was like that, may Allah forgive her. And if you are lying, then may Allah forgive you. This individual was completely stunned. Every tactic he tried did not work. The Imam kept his ground, calm and collected, cool. Nothing changed in him. It is recorded that because of this treatment, because of this behavior, because of the Imam being so cool, this individual realized there's something special about this man. So he became more gravitated towards the Imam, and eventually it is said, recorded in books of history, that he became a Muslim. Now, what I like to take away from this beautiful story of Imam Al-Baqir is what we see online, in particular, social media, and how people react to other videos. And I specifically mean people who use a certain kind of language, a certain kind of demeanor, a confrontational, abusive, aggressive kind of demeanor, sometimes teasing, sometimes humiliating the other side in the name of propagating the message, in the name of spreading the message of the Ahlul Bayt. And usually this happens with our brothers from Ahl Sunnah. If there is a video, if some foolish man or foolish woman on the internet has made a video of criticizing the madhab of Ahlul Bayt, of saying something that is trying to diminish our name, trying to say the Shia are X and the Shia are Y. Sometimes we see brothers who have good intentions, who really want to defend the school of Ahlul Bayt. Their go-to method is to be on their level. Their go-to method is not to be like Imam Al-Baqir, forbearing, patient, calm, cool, collected, not to come down to their level of calling each other names, of trying to be smart on who's able to own who. humiliate, who's able to humiliate the other side more. No, we don't usually see that. What we see is our brothers, alhamdulillah, we haven't seen sisters in this game yet, inshallah stays that way. But it's usually brothers who have a zeal, a ghira for the madhab, which is good, but they spend the energy in the wrong way. They want to defend Imam Ali, they want to defend Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, they want to defend Imam al-Hussein. But instead of using the methodology of Imam al-Baqir, showing character, showing respect, showing that you can do better if the opposite side is petty, that I am better than them, no, we come down to their level and we start using their tactics, we start employing their methodology. As if we are not taught better, as if our teachers are not the Ahlul Bayt, as if our teachers are not someone like Imam al-Baqir. All for what? For a bunch of likes and reposts? So you could go on people's stories and you have more following? So people can recognize, oh, this guy is the defender of the faith. Really? How many people, please tell me, how many people will be converted if you humiliate them? Even if you're upon the truth. All you're doing is singing to the choir. All you're doing is making those who already believe in what you believe and say, that cooled my heart. He brought him down, he smashed him. That's all you're doing. We're singing to the choir and they're singing to their choir. There's not a real sense of dialogue. There's not a real sense of understanding, seeing what the other side has to say. No, let me just say, so they've scored a goal it seems, let's score a goal back. They've scored a free kick, let's score a volley. We need to make this look even more dramatic than them because this is cinema, this is entertainment. Whereas for the Imams, the guidance of people finding the true path was their lifelong pursuit. It was their lifelong activity. They cared about people being guided or not. If a certain action of theirs, if a certain word of theirs, they knew would have the opposite effect, of course they would never use that. Following in the footsteps of Imam al-Baqir, to truly be a student of his, means to hold back that anger sometimes. That doesn't mean you should not be strong in defending your faith. No, be very strong. Be very courageous. Be well spoken. Be eloquent. Know your sources. But there's no need to come down to their level if someone is like that. Unfortunately, some of our brothers, the other side hasn't been on that lower level, but they come down to that level. And the other side has been respectful. He's just mentioned a critique of what he thinks the Shia are doing wrong, and he's respectful. But then when the other person responds, he starts cursing, he starts saying names, he starts saying X, Y, and Z. Where in the school of Ahlul Bayt does that methodology fit? You don't find that. The Imam is directly insulted. His mother is directly insulted. Cool, calm. And that eventually resulted in that individual finding guidance, if guidance is what is important to us. Now, moving on from Imam al-Baqir to Imam Al-Jawad alayhi salam, our ninth Imam, there are a lot of similarities between them. And although despite his young age when he became an Imam, and that surprised many people, the element of knowledge, Imam al-Baqir was called the splitter of knowledge. Imam Al-Jawad was known for his ability to show and display his knowledge, especially in debate. Because as you know, because of his young age, people doubted, how can someone be the leader of a community? How can someone be the Khalifa, the Imam that is supposed to kind of replace Rasulullah, but he's like 8 years of age? How old are you? 16. This brother's probably 7 or 8. Are you 8? Who's 8 years old here? Anybody? He's 8. MashaAllah, 7. Almost 8. He's 8. Imagine this young boy was to become your Imam. That's difficult. I'm sure you're very smart. You've got a book next to you. So inshallah you'll be a scholar one day. But imagine, we said he's the Imam, he has to give the fatwa, he has to lead the ummah. If there's a fatwa of jihad, he has to give it. It's very difficult. Very difficult to, if we place ourselves right now, when you read these stories, we're like, oh yeah, of course it's the Imam, why don't you follow them? But it's an 8-year-old at the end of the day. So what they would do is they would ask the Imam questions. What's the ruling for this? What's the verdict on this? What's the fatwa on this? And then they would put the Imam in debates. Not the Shia. The Shia would just ask questions and they would get their answers. And they would realize, if I ask my little friend here, what's your name? Ali, mashallah, we have the same name. If I ask him a difficult Hawzawi question and he gives the answer, I'm like, that's it, he's my teacher. Because at this age, if he knows it, I know this young boy is special. But the opponents of Imam Al-Jawad, the court of Ma'mun, and all those other individuals, they had other sinister intentions. They wanted to disgrace the Imam, so they would set debates. They wanted to see if the Imam could be victorious against another academic opponent from the other side, someone who believes in the school of Khilafah, someone who's a Christian, someone who's a Jew. How is the Imam able to fare with all these individuals? And time and again, the Imam would showcase his knowledge. Time and again, the Imam would show his prolific knowledge that he had, the expertise that Allah had taught him through his father and through his forefathers, the message and the knowledge that was passed down from Rasulullah. There is a beautiful, beautiful letter from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam to Imam al-Jawad. This is recorded in Sheikh al-Kulayni's Al-Kafi. Imam al-Rida, who is at the time as they're sending letters, so they must be separated, and it must be the case that it's during the time when Imam al-Rida is in Maru, where he was taken to be in the court of Ma'mun, and Imam al-Jawad will still be in Medina. He writes a letter to him. He says, "It's come to my attention, my son, Ya Jawad, that the servants of the house have forced you to not exit the house from the front, but go from the back. So you have your own secret exit from the house and your own entry." The Imam says the servants are doing these out of stinginess, out of bukhul. They don't want you to go out into the public. They don't want you to go to the people from the main door, where perhaps the public are expecting a member of the Ahlul Bayt, someone from the lineage of Rasulullah, to exit so they could ask a question, so they could ask for some money, some charity. The servants were kind of organizing Imam al-Jawad's entry and exit out of the house from the back. Imam al-Rida writes a letter. Imagine that. Imagine the Imam of the time with everything he has on his hands and all the ploys and the plots he has to deal with Ma'mun in Maru, in an entire city. He wants to check up on his son. What does he check up on? Which door he exits from in the house. Look at the attention to detail. Look at the attention to detail in the sense of tarbiyah. From another city, the Imam is worried about how to exit the house for Imam al-Jawad. Do not exit from the back door, exit from the front door so you have access to the people. Now, once again, on the face of it, we read this and we say, MashaAllah, please say a salawat in the honor of the Ahlul Bayt. What a beautiful family. And we forget to extend this to our day and age. We forget to extend this to what it looks like for us in our age. If any of us, and I'm talking about myself, generally speaking, has some kind of success, whether that be academically, whether that be financially, whether that be in terms of fame, whether that be politically, in terms of your influence in government, in community, what have you, some of us, not all of us, have this tendency to begin insulating ourselves. Now I'm a bit more important. I can't be hanging around these low lives. I can't be hanging around these people that are a waste of my time. I'm too good. My time is better, could be used in a better way. Who are these people? Let me find a way to avoid the community. Let me find a way to have a life that is separate from the community, because clearly I am better than the community. Clearly I am better than my Shi'i brothers and sisters. I've done X, Y, and Z. My earning is this much. I'm not going to hang around with these losers. I'm not going to hang around with these people who have nothing better to do than X, Y, and Z. Now, there's an element of truth and goodness to this kind of action. Even the Imams, they would tell us, mujalasatul ulama, sit with people of quality, sit with people of knowledge, sit with people of adab. If you have friends that have no adab, they're always swearing all the time, they are telling you about things, they are not telling you things that you know your parents, your religion will not approve of, very good. It's not best idea to surround yourself with them if it's going to affect you. But it's one thing to insulate yourself from problems. It's a whole nother thing to think you're above people. It's a whole nother thing that because I know more, I've read a few books more, my salary has more zeros than their salary. Therefore, to hang around them, to spend time with these Shia brothers and sisters, it's below my status. It's below what I can do. This happens, and sometimes in extremely subtle ways. Our beautiful scholars, some of them, And sometimes at the very, very elite level, our maraja sometimes, you get surprised how beautifully they apply this teaching in their lives. They have people around them, sometimes their family, sometimes people who work in their offices. They make barriers. They don't let you get to the alim. They don't let you get to the marja. That marja himself, the alim himself, that leader himself is not like that. At any chance he could sit down with people, listen to their problems, listen to their stories, he would love to do that. But there are people around them who get their sense of value, who get their sense of worth by just being close to that person, and then they want to block others from having access to that person. Just like these servants of Imam Al-Jawad. They were forcing the Imam to exit a different door, not to the front door to see the public. And this, my brothers, is something we should bear in mind. Yani, if we deal with the Maraja's office, we have a certain opinion of a religious leader, a spiritual leader, right? It's not usually a direct interaction we've had. We've had a terrible interaction with someone from the office. We've had a terrible interaction with someone who associates with that marja, with that scholar, with that individual, and we think that person is arrogant, we think that person is X, Y, and Z. But sometimes it's not the individual, sometimes it's not the scholar, sometimes it's those individuals in between that create the barriers. It's those individuals in between that don't let us get close to that person. Why? Because they get their sense of worth and identity from being those intermediaries. We need to be aware of that. And la samahallah, God forbid, we don't pass judgment on one of a pious category, or the most pious category sometimes we see amongst the Muslims, amongst the Shia. My final point from the life of Imam Al-Jawad, and a point that is very relevant to our times, is that Imam Al-Jawad, despite being called once again like his father from Medina to the court of Ma'mun and thereafter other khulafa, and always being persecuted, under surveillance, monitored, every movement, every action, everywhere he went is being watched. Because they're scared of this young man, they're scared of this man, and they want to make sure that he's not able to create an influence on the outer society, on the public. So they're always watching him. This went to the extent upon which one of the daughters of the Khalifa married Imam Al-Jawad by the name of Fadl. She was not a true wife. She was not a sincere wife. She was not a loyal wife to the Imam. She was nothing but a spy. The Khalifa forced this marriage between his daughter and the Imam so he could have the most intrusive and penetrative kind of access to the Imam. Who knows more what's going inside the house than the people of the house? Your wife and your kids. Everything you do, they see. So he used this tactic to want to control the Imam. Despite this intense and intimate level of surveillance that the Khalifa put on the Imam managed to control the Shia population all over the Muslim lands through the system of Wakala, by having representatives in different cities and managing all of them in this large geographical area. Imagine that for a second. You're being watched in your house, but you are able to control a large population of Shia through this hidden network. This was from the wisdom of the Imam. This was from the wisdom of Imam Al-Jawad alayhi salam. What does that teach us? That despite how intimately we are being criticized and scrutinized and persecuted as the Shia in these lands, despite how much they want to pressure us falsely, they want to put us on the media, they want to put us on this channel, on this article, and make us look like monsters, make us look like terrorists, and we're not. They know that better than us, that we are a peaceful group, that we are a people of integrity, that we are a people of principle, that for us, values of honesty, integrity, cooperation, coexistence in these lands means the most. We're not here to disrupt the order. We're not here to change things. Yes, we are here to bring the message of the Ahlul Bayt, because it is a beautiful message that the entirety of humanity should hear. Yes, we want that. With our mannerism, with our lectures, with our community centers, we'll never hold back. And one of the most important messages of the Ahlul Bayt is to stand for the oppressed. And we'll stand for the oppressed. If there is some non-Muslim Gary who's an atheist, who's probably a transgender, and he's able to protest against what's happening in Palestine, but a Shi'i does not, that's a shame for the Shia. Because I inherited the wisdom of the Ahlul Bayt. I inherited the morality of Al-Baqir and Al-Jawad. Yet I am not able to stand for the oppressed. But Gary, who's a transgender, with all due respect, I'm not disrespecting anyone here. But he who does not come from the tradition I come from, he who has not been raised and educated in the legacy that I have been raised and educated in, he's able to stand for a principle of humanity. Yet you and I sometimes, and I don't mean the people in this room, despite being Shia, we don't practice that. So of course, being Australian, of course being a Muslim, of course being a human being, and on top of that, and the most important part of that, being a Shi'i, will stand for our values. We'll stand for our values, like the Imams have. Despite how intimate, how intense this scrutiny might come, because we have nothing to hide. Imam Al-Jawad had nothing to hide. Even if his wife was spying on him, sending information to Ma'mun, he was able to move the message forward. Why? Because there's nothing to hide. The message is clear. We have values and we'll stand by those values. And we will not cower, we will not be scared because media comes after us, because they tell us we're terrorists, we're X, Y, and Z. No. My brothers, if 10, 20 years ago, they were going after our Sunni brothers and calling them terrorists because of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and whatnot, now it's our turn, unfortunately. Now it's the Shia who are being blamed. There was a bombing, a mosque shooting in America. One of the most important news outlets, who do they blame? They blame the Shia because it's a Sunni mosque. Think about that. They blame the Shia in Iran for bombing a mosque in, I think, San Diego. That's crazy. That's unbelievable. They know the Shia are not that kind of a group. Yes, the Shia are brave. Yeah, we are brave in defending our lands. We are brave in defending our honor. We are brave in defending our religion. And we are very principled and moral. But that does not mean we'll do something like that. We cannot be coming and associated with a group like ISIS, who actually does terrorist bombings, who are extremists who killed the Shia themselves. But that's what they're doing, my brothers. We are unfortunately being targeted because we actually have something to offer. These extremist groups had nothing to offer. They were easy to pick. There was easy problems to find out. They were violent, they were aggressive, they were dogmatic. They did not want to listen to you. Tolerance and coexistence meant nothing. We're the opposite of that. We've learned so much from our Imams, and they realize, look, these people actually have something to offer. There's history, there's tradition, there's morality, there's humanity, there's courage, there's bravery. There are all these values. And yet they want to come after us. But just like Imam Al-Jawad stood tall, stood brave, stood strong, you and I inherit that blood. You and I inherit that tradition. We will continue to stand defending our brothers in the ways we can. Nothing illegal, not promoting violence, but in the ways we can. In the ways that is available to us. In the ways that is available in this country, in this land, by the law that enables it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to perform our duty in this day and age. Not to be locked into our bubbles. I know Brisbane, alhamdulillah, is a very comfortable life and everything is nice and quiet and everything, and we might think that we're completely disconnected from the rest of the world. No, regardless of whether we are and how comfortable and quiet our lives are, and it's a beautiful city, by the way, I'm very jealous of the lives you are living, but nonetheless, our duty never goes. Our duty never becomes quiet. Our responsibility never goes away. Inshallah, despite the peace we are given, or we should say because of the peace we are given, because of the privilege we are being given, because of the opportunity that we have in these lands and these countries, we can use that in our teachings from the Ahlul Bayt to perform our duty towards the Mazlumeen, towards the people that are truly receiving the short end of the stick of imperialism, of colonialism, of Zionism. May Allah relieve their problems. May Allah relieve all countries and all nations experiencing war. May Allah relieve all the Muslimin, all the mu'mineen that are experiencing difficulty, poverty, famine, and anything that is afflicting the nation of our beautiful Prophet. I'll end with praying for the health, and the faraj of the Imam of our time. Allahumma kulli waliyyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.